Welcome back to episode number 10 of this Python tutorial series. Last episode, we just finished talking about functions, and this episode, we are talking about something called try and accept statements. And so I'll explain what that is. It's better to I learned better with examples, so I'm going to make an example for you. So we're going to create a variable. You don't have to, it'll just work with that. Hello world, right? And so let's say we want to make this variable. So we're going to have a new variable. And let's say we want to make a float, right? Well, I want this variable to turn into a float value, but you can't do that, right? Because this is not a float, it's a string, and you can't turn a string into a float. So what happens? It errors, and so it stops the whole function. It has red lines like this, and the whole code is messed up until this is fixed. And so what you could do is there's something called try and accept statements. And so how you call them is you just call try double dot, and then you press tab, and it's everything after this with a tab is part of this try, and then after it's still red because it needs an accept. Except what else happens? And so I'll explain. So you have this variable hello world, and you're basically trying to see if whatever below works. And if it works, it doesn't use accept. But if it errors, if it causes an error like this, it's not going to throw up these red lines and mess up your whole code. It's just going to go to the accept part. So we go print this errored. Why did this happen? Right? This threw up an error. That. Right. And so hello world, this is obviously going to error because we see here. So it's going to try doing this. It errors. So it's going to go to accept. Why did this happen? But it didn't have red lines. So you could have stuff below here, like you could create new variables, print hello, right? Just to show it could go to these next lines. This threw up an error. Why did this happen? Hello, but it still happened. If I just did new var is equal to the float of a variable, the whole code stops and it doesn't even go to line 6. It doesn't even print hello, right? It stopped at this because it threw up an error. That's why try and accept statements are so good. But let's say you're like, why did this error? It doesn't explain why this errored, right? It just told you it errored because I wrote it. So what you could go accept exception as E. And now you're basically saying, try this, and then it errors, and you're basically saying, all right, accept, and the exception is what happened, the error, as a variable E. And you could print now, you could print anything. You could be like, print this errored because, and you could go backslash n plus str of e. This errored because backslash n, and it's going to explain like that. So it's not going to be in red lines anymore. It's just going to be in string format. Cannot convert string to float. That's why. That's why it errored. So it's going to tell you why it errored without stopping the rest of your code. It's still printed hello, right? But if you just used just new var equals float var, it's going to turn red and the whole code stops. So that's something really good about try and accept statements. And you don't just have to use them for, like, if an error pops up, you could use them to your advantage. So you could basically say, let's say you have a user input, right? You could have variable equals input, enter uh, any number, right? And so you're going to print a number, this input, right? And let's say, right, if I have just int, right, if I want to turn this into an int like that, it has to be an integer with what I input, or else it's gonna error. So if I put 9, it's gonna work. But if I put it's gonna error because it can't turn it into an integer. So what you could do is like this. So you'll have an input like this, which will start off as a string, and you could try var is equal to itself as an integer. So it's gonna try to turn that input into an integer, and if it doesn't, we could be like print you didn't listen. Like that. Did not listen, whatever. Like that. And so now instead of throwing up red lines, it's going to be print any number, ha ha ha. You did not listen, but the code stops. So what you could do is you could put this whole thing in a while loop. We talked about while loops before, so we go while true, and while true is always true, right? Because true is never going to be not true, and it's just so it's going to keep on repeating until you break it, until you break the loop. So this is going to go on forever, and then you can go print var plus 10. Oh wait, yeah, like that. So you want to put this in here like that. So it's going to be while loop. It's going to be enter any number, right? If that number is not a number, if you put it as a string, it's going to error. It's going to be like you didn't listen, and it's going to go back to this while loop. Right, and you can break it right here, and then it's going to keep on repeating, right, until you try, and the variable can be an integer, and then you're going to print the variable plus 10 or whatever you want to do, and then you're going to break the whole while loop, and you could go down here after the while loop is completed, right, and then you're forcing the user to give you an integer without completely screwing up your code. So this is just one of the use cases you could use with tries and accepts. Enter any number. Well, I'm not giving anything. You did not listen. Enter a number. Right? You could keep on doing this until you finally end up giving a number anything. 1929, right? And then it's gonna finally turn into an integer. It's gonna try and it's gonna work. And it's gonna do this, and then it's gonna break. And that's how try and accept statements work. It doesn't have to be the first line too. It could be anything. If I try to make something a float on the 9, right? Float of uh hello, right? This is gonna error, even though it's not on the top. It's gonna error and it's gonna go to the accept. So if any lines error in the try statement, in the try part, it's gonna take you instantly to the accept. So this is never gonna break because this errors, right? So you're gonna go like that, enter any number, even if I put 9, it's gonna say 19, but it's gonna say you did not listen because it does everything up to here until this errored. It's gonna take you to the accept part. And that's how try and accept statements work. You could pair them up with while loops, you could pair them up with for loops, you could pair them up with functions, you could pair them up with anything. And these are just one of the small use cases you could use with tries and accepts. And yeah, you'll learn more as you go on in your Python journey. And that's all I have to say about try and accepts. And that's it for this video. I'll see you guys in the next one. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments down below. I'll see you guys.